Aloha! We are here with the Neutral Zone. I don't have Jason's intro today, but you know me, Scott Bushnell from Kihei. I'm here with my close friend Greg Rife, and we are going to carry you through the Neutral Zone today. Jason needed a day off. Greg was here with us, about 9 months ago, maybe a year ago. Somewhere in that time.
Actually, it was last May, Scott.
Was it last May?
Almost a year.
Almost a year. Okay, goodness. So we're off Cuckoo Radio 88.5, the Neutral Zone. Today we came in with some agenda, but you know what? That's the whole thing about the Neutral Zone is to identify agendas. And today we have a million agendas floating around in the air, Greg, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. Every time I wake up and look at my algorithms and what I see, there's all kinds of things out there, and we're trying to find the truth behind all of it.
We're looking for the truth. The algorithms. That's a new word that people are finally, I think, are finally grasping that an algorithm. Okay, let's say you're 8, 9 years old on a playground. Okay. And you're like, okay, there's some kids over there that I like, and they like to play Foursquare or something, so I'm going to go hang with those kids. And so then you just, as you kind of go out to recess every day, you're going to gravitate to that kids playing Foursquare, not the kids over here shooting baskets. An algorithm is something they've created initially. I pray there's no nefariousness in this, but it has become. They've created that to sell things. As we all know.
To sell ideas, to sell emotions.
Yes. To sell, definitely to sell agendas. Yeah.
Or promote agendas.
Promote agendas.
I think that's a way to describe it, Scott.
Yeah. That company back in the 50s and 60s, Gallic Hutton, they were a promotional advertising company, and they were hired by Philip Morris. And their whole goal wasn't to make cigarettes or prove people that cigarettes were safe. They just wanted to implant it that maybe the science is wrong, or maybe cigarettes are okay. They didn't have to prove them healthy. They just made the people that were smoking cigarettes to think, that's okay.
Or they just interjected, there's some doubt as to what is true.
Exactly, Greg. Some doubt. So that the truth gets cluttered. And that was before we were born. I do remember seeing, 9 out of 10 doctors smoke Camels. I do some of those commercials in my childhood that were long-lived when we were small.
Well, we both watched the TV commercials, if you recall, back in the 1960s when we were growing up, before they were taken off the air.
Yeah, and we didn't realize back then that was creating our lifestyle. Some of you might know, many of you probably don't know. Greg and I first appeared on television 60 years ago together. That's crazy. We appeared on my brother's program, who was directing a cartoon program. Greg and I were regular guests on a cartoon show. So, we've been doing this a while. We're kind of back in the studio now, and this is...
that was a long time ago, though.
It was. We have great memories. So today we're not here to tell you President Trump is God. We're not here to tell you he's Satan. We're not here to tell you that COVID was a lie. We're not here to tell you COVID was the truth. We're here to tell you about something that is called the NCI Engineered Reality Scoring System. And it's a scoring system that doesn't care about what's true or not true. It's here to tell us, is there a psyops? Is there a nefarious reason?
And can define psyops for our audience. What is that?
Psychological operation.
Right.
So that they're going to try to convince you either one way or the other. Let's go. Perfect psyops. Before the first Gulf War started. If any of you happen to be old enough or remember CNN in its glory days, they ran a story about this young girl who was a nurse in a hospital in Kuwait. And they said, the soldiers came in and they took the babies off the respirators and they just let them die in the street. And that story ran on every single news network. It got repeated and repeated and repeated and repeated and repeated. And what did it do? It fueled. It didn't fuel love for
Iraq.
No.
It was something that was a justification, I think, to invade, or to defend Iraq or Kuwait.
Kuwait, yeah. And that was kind of in retrospect, if you look at it. And then the NCI thing is its timing. Okay, they know that they want to go in Kuwait. They know that the American people don't want another war. So the first thing is timing. They release this after the Iranians have come into Kuwait. Okay, so it hits every single news network, hits all the newspapers, does all that. It was a different time and place. Second part of that NCI system is emotional manipulation. Who doesn't feel bad when they hear about babies? Or they hear about that emotion of mothers losing their children and they're dying in the street. Holy crap, I remember that absolutely. It played everywhere, and I was just moved by it. I was like, that's just not right. We've got to do something about that. And the uniform messaging is the third point when we do an NCI scoring system. So this doesn't say whether it's right or wrong. It just tells us if we're being swayed one way or the other. So the next one is uniform messaging. It went out, the same story went out uniformly on, back then, CNN was big, NBC, ABC, CBS. They were the big boys.
That occurred during the early 1990s, if I recall. That's right.
Yeah.
During the George H.W. Bush era.
Yes.
Yes.
So, yeah. And then we go to the next one after uniform messaging, which we know that's true. So that's like a 5 out of 5 score on that. And we're like 1 for 5 on all these. The next one is missing information. Nobody questioned, okay, what hospital in Kuwait?
There was no verification done, I think is what you're saying.
Yeah. There was missing. Yeah. There was no verification. Yeah. They ran the story emotionally. And now we know with algorithms that if something stirs you emotionally and makes you angry, it drives viewership and it drives commercial time and it drives the value of what dollars you get for a commercial. And the media's known that forever. They've known that their top shows are the most expensive commercials. All of a sudden, going back to President Eisenhower, who said, if you create war that is, what did he say? You create war if you incentivize war through profit, you will always have war. That's a very botched president, but it's true. And when you start tearing at people's emotional hearts, and that's what they did.
But think about where we're going with this here. So we're not advocating one way or the other whether back then that was the right thing to do or not.
No.
Because there was two sides to the story, and you could apply that same test or that same scoring system to the other side.
Absolutely.
And this is what we're getting at today, Scott, is how this creates division and anger on either side. And where you and I are coming in, and our discussion this week is, where's the truth?
Where's the truth?
Yeah.
Okay.
So without judgment on whether
we're not taking sides on that war at all here. But we are doing is going, okay, there is this NCI engineered reality scoring system that came out in the late 1980s, early 1990s.
or even before, I think.
Oh, even before, yeah.
I think that's been there for a while. But regardless of when it came out, it is an interesting concept.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to sow doubt, you know, okay, and now all of a sudden we're hearing about weapons of mass destruction. And now there's another topic. But during this whole thing, we're all going like, oh my God, weapons of mass destruction. And if you're a kid coming out of the 50s, 60s, 70s, that triggers pictures in your mind of every movie that was made about the destruction of the world. You know, there was plenty of them. And they were big dollar movies.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're getting there. So, and we're not taking a side, but we have a reality scoring system that gives us an opportunity to go. When you look at something and you see something on TV and you go, boy, I changed the channel and they said the same thing. Or I changed the channel and they said the same thing. I changed it. It must be real. And the human brain, and this is a lot of what I do teaching people to swim, is I do a repetitive thing that allows them to replace a bad memory of being in the water with a good one. And it's proven psychology. And now it's been used to manipulate people to thinking one way or the other way. So what are we doing here? Okay, so why?
Yeah, where are we going with this here? What was our message to our audience today?
Yeah. Why, you know?
So Scott and I, when I come to Hawaii, when I come to Maui, we spend a lot of time on our walks on the beach, and we get into these deep discussions. And for both of us, it's a safe place because we can say whatever we want. And,
absolutely.
And it's not an argument. It's not. I don't know if debate is even the right word, but it's an exploration into what the truth is. And one thing that we stumbled on this week is this idea about how do you pronounce that?
PSYOP.
Psychological operation and algorithms, and how the one thing I remember from when I was working, the concept of your just biases. Confirmation bias is a term.
Very good. Very good.
And so what these algorithms are doing, or with this psyops thing, is it's feeding on your biases.
Exactly.
And helping you to confirm that.
Yeah.
And again, this is not a discussion here on the radio about what's right or what's wrong, or which side you should be on. We're trying to explore how do you get the truth from both sides and merge it together.
Exactly.
And come up with something that you believe in.
Yeah.
Which may not necessarily be what you believe in.
No.
But we can have that discussion, and that's a healthy. And now we get back to the word debate. Being able to debate a subject back and forth and reach a common truth.
Yeah. And that's we kind of missed that. And now we get to the next level of this scoring thing, which is tribal division. And that goes back to that Philip Morris statement, is we don't need to prove ourselves right. We just need to make sure that if you think you're right, yeah, we're with you. We support your smoking. Yeah. And it goes back to that. And then it's simple messaging. What is simple messaging? Where did that come from? It used to be people would get the newspaper every day, and whatever was on the front page, that headline, a lot of people never made it past that. Maybe a sentence, maybe 6 words. And we've been programmed through the newspaper to very seldom go 8 pages back. Some of us did, but not many.
I just went to the funny papers.
Yeah, the funny papers. That's a great way to put that.
My mother used to go to the crossword puzzles, and then anyway, I'm off topic. Sorry.
There's a lot here. So, why is tribal division important? Well, back when Philip Morris was doing their thing, it meant that people, and this again isn't psychologically speaking, if you hear something you agree with, your brain stimulates things that make you feel good.
But you also want to agree with a certain side. If you're so having been addicted to nicotine at one point, you want that to be true.
Yeah.
You want that to be okay.
Yes.
And I remember my grandfather, when he heard about, when it finally came out that cigarettes caused cancer, he quit cold turkey. I don't think he wanted to. He wanted it to be not true, but
right.
he finally had to,
exactly,
believe that, or accept the truth.
Exactly.
And that led to, and then he quit. But a lot of people, I think, that are currently smoking or whatever form of nicotine you use, if you want that to be if you want the truth to be that it's okay,
yeah,
then that doubt comes into play.
Right.
So that's
in today's world, nobody questions that cigarettes are bad.
They don't.
But what's the new nicotine? Vaping. Oh my goodness. And you look at these studies that show vaping's okay, and nobody goes in and looks who's paying for the study. And that's sometimes very hard to find.
That's actually a really good point. If you look at the studies, and not just who pays for them, but how they are set up and conducted, and what the population is in those studies, that brings into doubt whether those are the results are valid. So that's actually an interesting topic.
It really is. Yeah. And Greg and I both are cancer survivors, and we've been having these conversations of late that are like, well, okay, and I've been exploring deeply into like these different herbal medications that help you with your memory and help you with restructuring, keeping your bones strong and all that. And for up until just a very short time ago, that was all thought as hocus pocus, and now all of a sudden we're going like, okay, now we have Bobby Kennedy in there, and Bobby Kennedy's telling us that the sugar is the culprit in the processing of, it's not that corn oil is bad. If you just crushed up a bunch of corn and made it oil, that would be pretty amazing. But what you have to do to corn to put it in a bottle and make it yellow so it doesn't get rancid, that process is like making gasoline. And you have to use all these detergents and scrubbers of that corn. Excuse me. So here we are. We're all of a sudden learning now for the first time, and the pushback is hard. When you hear the pushback against, we all know that McDonald's is questionable. We all know that.
What? I can't have a Big Mac anymore.
No, but you have a Big Mac with an idea that this isn't my daily dose of food. I don't, but you do.
Yeah, but here, this is actually eating and food and nutrition is a great example here. Go back to the 1970s when my father had heart disease and high cholesterol. What did they tell him not to do?
Yeah.
Not eat eggs.
Yeah.
So what's happening today?
All the eggs you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, it's not and this, I'm not saying this is true or not, but some of what I've read says that cholesterol isn't necessarily coming from the food you eat. It's your body produces it. And it's all different for all of us, right?
Yes, we're all different.
And so I get on, let's get back to algorithms, and I'm really interested in my health, and I have heart disease in my family. My physician has prescribed statins, right? And I take statins every day. Yet I can go online, and depending on which algorithm I'm tapped into or what I want to hear, I can either hear how great statins are for you.
Yes.
Or there are supposedly these physicians that are out there, these board-certified cardiologists on the other side of the table are saying they're not good for you. That you shouldn't have them. They wouldn't prescribe them.
No.
So what? And I get confused. I go, what? Am I being unhealthy or am I doing the right thing or not? And back to this psyops thing again.
Right.
You got two sides that are trying to convince you to see their way. They're going after your biases.
Exactly. They want you to feel good about what you're eating.
Yeah. And so here's the question: how do you get to the truth?
Right.
How do you get around it? Where's the right, the right forum to find that out?
It almost doesn't exist. And that's where this NCI system comes in. about 8-9 months ago. So they want me on all these statins. I have high cholesterol, whatever. And so I've been on Ancestry.com for a long time. I've done my DNA. For all my life, I thought I had a German-Irish background. I found out I'm almost all Swede. And then Ancestry.com says that Swedes have the highest lifespan, but all these Swedes that have lived over 100 have had very high cholesterol their entire life. And that study in itself, that's a study done in Sweden. You can look it up. It's not easy to find, but when you look it up, you can find it on Ancestry.com. They'll link it to you. And I'm reading this study of like 8,000 Swedes that lived to 110, and they all had high cholesterol. And I'm like, time out. And that came out of left field.
Right.
Because all I'm seeing on my algorithm is take those statins.
But here's the question on that. Is there something else about being Swedish? Is it the environment they live in? Is it because they have a less sun? Is it what is it?
But there's Swedes all around the world.
Well, that's true. But
and that's what the study was done on.
But some of these studies, if you peel back the onion, don't necessarily support that. But
no.
And this gets to where is the truth.
We find the truth. And that was one of those little strings that I pulled that I went, I don't know this information. And then a strange thing happened a few years ago. I was at my daughter's house where a bunch of my stuff from the mainland still stored, and I'm going through one of the safes that I left there, and I find my cholesterol report from 1978. I have the same cholesterol today I had in 1978 when I was in high school. And I'm like, okay. And there's another question.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, and let's talk about watching television. Let's talk about every time you watch sports, you watch anything that is not like a pay-for-show where you got commercials. We see every kind of medication under the sun, and we've got a Hollywood production that says, you take my drug, you're going to run with your grandkids, and you're going to pick them up, and you're going to run through a beautiful valley of, flowers, and your life's going to be great. If you get to your doctor and ask them about blah, blah, blah drug, and I mean, that's persuasive. And if you're watching, let's say you're watching a Trailblazer game. We followed the Trailblazers since we were kids. You watch a game like that and you see that commercial 30 times, it kind of sticks.
Yeah, it does. And you go to your physician, you ask about it. And depending on who your physician is, they may say, oh, absolutely, I'll prescribe that.
Absolutely.
Others may say, no. And so, again, you're back to what's the truth.
What's the truth? And now we go back to the NCI engineering. It's probably not a psyops, but it is an attempt to make you question, make you think, which way should I go here? Is this going to be good for me? Maybe I should go see my doctor and see if it's good for me. And when you walk into your doctor's office and you lead with, I think I need this drug. All that list I see on TV, which I've seen at least 500 times now, I can check all those boxes. You think I should be on that? And a lot of people go to their doctor after seeing all these commercials. Who makes more money than anyone else in our country today?
Pharmaceutical
companies. Right. Yeah. And so here we are, and we're going like, And these statins now, and again, we went down a rabbit hole with those, but then you read these studies about people who get Alzheimer's and have memory problems. And the reason I'm going down this rabbit hole, because I'm taking this homeopathic lion's mane. It's a mushroom that's been used in ancient Chinese medicine forever to help memory and help clarity. And so I've been taking it now for probably going on 3 or 4 years. And it's just like, okay. And is my memory good? No. We have our conversations. We have that.
Yeah, who
left
their phone in the apartment?
Who left their phone before we came over here? But and prior to that, I was writing on my chart notes for my work over at MCCC and with children and families. And it used to be I would have my little yellow notepad here, and I would just be raging down notes about every client. And in the last couple of years, I sit down to do my notes, after using this, I don't know if it's good for you or bad for you. I'm just saying, man, I remember everything now when the guys talk. I'm like, wow. And it used to be I would just struggle. And I'm like, I'm dyslexic, so I totally turn things around really easily.
But it works.
It works. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, is there? Well, there's, who knows? The truth is out there.
Yeah.
The truth is out there. And I think, and Greg and I, we started this conversation on the way over, and I think it's worth exploring while we're talking about a reality scoring system. It says, we used to all get together and go to religious services. It used to be about 80% of Americans about 30 years ago would go to some sort of religious service 2 or 3 times a year, if not every week. And the interesting thing that I was regaling with Greg is that I remember going to Mass. I went to Catholic school, and I remember that there were families that I knew that were Republican. I knew there was some that were Democrat, and I knew some that were Democrat were all part of the union because they were either Teamsters or doing this or doing that, and that was part of the Democratic Party. I remember my grandparents on my mother's side who were Civil War Republicans, who were totally, their parents were, voted Lincoln into office, which is scary. That's only a few generations back. And so back then, though, everybody would go to a religious service on Sunday, and they would gather, and their whole ethos was let go of, well, this is the way I think we should drive the bus, and this is the way I think we should drive the bus, and we all want to be good people.
Right. And so I think what you're getting at is that there are differences among all these different people, but the vast majority of what we want is very common. It's
very common.
Yeah, I mean, we want the truth. We want to be healthy. We want to be engaged with our communities. We want to do the right stuff. Mm-hmm. Even though there are some things on the side that we may disagree on. Yeah. But these not just the religious service, Scott, but it's the whole community.
The community.
Yeah, with the church community. And that doesn't have to be Catholic or Jewish or any church community. When they come together and support each other, creates that that comfort level.
And it's a larger than something that you might be part of this or part of that, but we're all part of this, and that's huge. The interesting thing that I have been, I love following Maui real estate. I love following real estate in general. I find that I used to do really well flipping houses and such. And what I have seen in just the last 15 to 20 years is houses used to be built around the kitchens. And you'd have friends over for meals. In your house, that still happens.
That does, yes.
It does. But most families now have gotten so disjointed. I mean, it used to be Sunday dinner. Everybody would go to mom's house. When I was little, we'd go to grandma's house. And there'd be this huge ingedum. This whole family would come together. On the island, it's still a blessing. I have friends that have families that have to meet on the beach and on picnic tables because there's so many of them, and that is just wonderful. That is the strength of Maui. That is the strength of Hawaii, are their families that are so large and so close-knit. But a lot of us have lost that. My kids live all over. They live from Baton Rouge to Kumado, New Mexico, to San Francisco, to the state penitentiary.
Well, I like the point you're making here, because I've married into a large Italian family, and
you did,
with a lot of differences of opinion on a lot of different things. Yet we all come together for these social events. It's a lot of it's around food. I'll admit that.
Yeah, amazing food.
Amazing food.
Cecile, Tina, I know you're watching this.
Yeah.
Your food is. Greg's been eating hot dogs and hamburgers here.
Yeah, and
we're
potato chips. Oh, and then don't forget the cookies we bought at Costco, because your cookies that you were baking weren't that great. So yeah. Anyway.
I make him cookies. What does he do? He complains. Like,
no, we go to Costco. I buy you cookies. I buy you shoes.
But my partner Andrew, he goes, "You're making cookies," and I go, "Yeah, it was always growing up when Greg would show up at my house from when he was 5 years old on. He would my mom had this big cookie jar in the kitchen, and Greg would go over there and he'd go, "Miss Bushnell, can I have a cookie?" And it would be like, "Hey Scott, boom, mom, cookie."
I can visualize it. I know right on where it sat on the counter. I could stand in your kitchen. It's right there up on the left there. Yeah.
This big brown cookie jar. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, we digress.
Yes, which keeps this fun.
Yeah. But, this, again, back to the whole community thing. And we lived in a neighborhood where people got together and, it was a different era back then in the 1960s and 70s when we grew up.
It was great. So again, we're at the halfway mark. We are Akaku Radio, 88.5 FM. And this is the voice of Maui. We are here, Greg and I, coming from across the planet. We both made, I came to Hawaii in the 70s and fell in love with it. And it's home.
And I started visiting here in 2003. Scott moved here in 2015. Mm-hmm. And so we've actually kind of re-engaged. We've always been friends, but I mean, this has been an opportunity to come together, in person again.
Yeah. It's like, when I came in the 70s, my sister's husband was in the Navy, and I lived in Waipahu with them. Well, my nephew, who is coming to visit, which I'm really excited about, he lived in Waipahu. He was in the Navy, so he's really excited about coming and visiting Uncle Scott. Okay. I digress, but here we are in Hawaii, and we really just want, and the truth is somewhere in the mix, and that's what is so hard sometimes. We grew up with Face the Nation, we grew up with Point, Counterpoint, all these news shows that modeled two very different opinions. And they came together and they sparked but at the end, that wasn't anger at each other. That was a way of creating more viewership and showing the compassion of the point of view they had. And that was really good. They used to teach statesmanship in high school. Statesmanship was part of your civics, which was learning how the government's grown. They do some of that now, but very few kids get into debate. And it used to be when you would do your history classes and stuff like that, you talk about everything, and nobody got mad at each other. And there we go back to the algorithm.
Yeah.
People who are all over the planet who why is that algorithm important? Because you want to feel good about smoking. I don't smoke. I've never smoked. But I want to feel good about having my sea salt potato chips and spinach, avocado, jalapeno dip from Costco. I want to say, I want to feel good about that. And
that is your bias, and you want to confirm that. And so you gravitate towards those sources that do that.
And they reaffirm themselves.
Right.
They're self-reaffirming. Well, if you click on something, one of your friends' posts, and it's like, oh, I agree with that. I read that. Oh, it gets me angry. And we go back to that. Does it have emotional manipulation? That message that they may have reposted. And what is reposting? Reposting is uniform messaging.
Right, Scott. And what social media has done is allowed us all to become journalists.
Exactly.
And whether that post is true or not, and I'm not saying it is or isn't.
No.
When you like it, it becomes true to somebody else.
Right.
And it goes both sides.
Yeah.
So what I have tried to do, and I have found a few sources of information where the podcaster or whoever will lay out the facts. They won't give you an opinion. They'll lay out the facts. Yeah. There's one I really like that I've been listening to, and then you step back and say, oh, and then what they'll do is she'll say, Now, critical thinking, put yourself in both sides.
Yes.
And it kind of makes you start to think about, okay, now I got the facts, now I can make my decision.
Exactly.
As opposed to getting facts from one side or the other, and that becomes your world.
Exactly.
And that's what I'm struggling with. And that's what trying to get to the truth.
Yeah.
And be comfortable with what I decide to be the truth, and feel comfortable being able to talk about it and debate it with
Yeah. And there's very few people. Great.
You and I can debate. My brother and I can debate.
Yeah.
And it's
a very small world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what social media has done, and what this scoring system, one of the high things there that catch us on this is cherry-picked data. And that's there's a kernel of truth, and it gets repeated and repeated and repeated, but it's not the whole truth. It's cherry picking. Right. Here's a study. The studies that Philip Morris got from the Health Tobacco Association, which sounds like an organization that's going to give you healthy information, was funded by a subsidiary of Philip Morris to create studies that they knew would give you question to think, is cigarettes okay? I think cigarettes are okay. I'm okay with that. Just today, you're going like, well, is cholesterol okay, or is cholesterol not okay? Do I need the medication? Do I not need the medication?
Well, and there's all this commentary now about the new thing is intermittent fasting. Is that good, or is that not so good? My brother and I talk about that a lot.
I swear by it.
Yeah. Well, and that actually, personal experience is a missing piece of the pie. Not just reading about it, but once you get that personal experience and you feel good about it, which algorithm do you go to? You go to the one where it talks about intermittent fasting being the thing you should do.
Yes, something that was brought divine intervention.
But then, if you allow yourself to go the other side, to the other algorithms, there are people out there that say, no, intermittent fasting isn't good. It slows your metabolism down. It causes all these other issues.
Right.
So where's the truth?
Where's the truth?
Right. Again, today we're not trying to tell you what the truth is. We're just trying to give you some some thoughts into how you might find that truth. Yeah.
I mean, and we saw this, and what sometimes they're trying to create, especially when our governments are doing this, as long as they can keep us disconnected with each other, they've created what is called historical paralysis, where you just throw up your hands and go, I don't even know anymore. I'm overloaded with information. I believe these people. I believe, and you just walk away.
I think you're starting to see that more today.
Today.
People are the true way to reduce stress. And I've read this, and I've heard people say this. I've done it myself a little. I'm not going to watch the news anymore. I'm done.
I'm done.
Because I don't know whether it's true or not.
Yeah.
And plus it upsets me. It gets my emotions going.
Yes, I don't need that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't you reach out and talk to certain friends anymore? I don't have the emotional time. I'm dealing with other things, and as much as that's important, it's not that I'm not believing that you don't believe what you believe. It's just that your emotional energy is more than I can handle right now, and people are stepping away. I stepped away from the Republican Party, 20 years ago, when I just got so frustrated because they wouldn't balance the budget. And I'm going, I have to make sure my checkbook balances or my digital bank account balances. And then the Republican Party just kind of walked away from that. And so I left the Republican Party. My good friend who ran for president, Gary Johnson, a libertarian, I worked his campaign for a couple cycles. And I just kind of started... Definitely, I just got overwhelmed. I was like, I don't know the difference of the parties anymore.
Right, and that's
the paralysis.
Exactly, and that paralysis is driven by an overwhelming amount of information. This phone right here.
Yeah,
I mean, more powerful than the computers on the Apollo missions.
Exactly.
Took us to the moon.
Yes.
is now telling me that we maybe didn't go to the moon, right? But
Right.
but it's and that amount of, and then trying to sift through that and decide what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah.
That's hard, and that's the frustration.
Yeah.
And finding a safe place to have that debate and say, okay, this is what I've read. What did you read? What do you think? And you and I do this. We go on these to this audience here. We go on these long walks.
Yeah.
Which is why I like to come to Maui. I may have to do this 2 or 3 times a year now, Scott.
Just so you know, we're both safely vent.
Yeah, it's therapeutic.
It is. Yeah.
And I do the same thing with my brother.
Right.
I mean, my brother goes off on stuff, and I throw ideas out, and he listens. And there's no worry that I'm going to get chewed up because of my opinion.
Right.
Or not. I don't even say opinion. It's an idea, something I read, or something to challenge what he's saying.
Yeah. It's like, is there a litmus test here?
Yeah.
And that's what this oh God, I can't even remember the acronym.
It was something that we just recently saw, that out there. Although I suppose someone may argue that itself is a psyops.
But actually, no. I've seen this over my lifetime.
Yeah.
I've seen it when this came out when I was in college,
Yeah.
and it was such a footnote at the time. Because they didn't know if it was political science, they didn't know if it was salesmanship, or they didn't know if it was sociology. It was a combination of all of them. Because you can decide whether or not you're using the right dish soap, because they put baby ducks on your counter that, and they do all that. They make, I want to buy this product because it saves the environment, and we want to feel good when we go buy soap.
Right. Well, and that's what advertising agencies do, right?
Yes.
So I mean, there's nothing wrong with that per se.
No.
But what we're kind of getting at is that some of these other things, some of these more important topics,
much more important.
Are use that same.
They do.
Yeah, and
that
so
same system.
Right.
And we've gone through a lot with Iraq in the last week or so, and the jury's way out for me on that one. But I do remember, because I was lifeguarding over here when the Shah was deposed and all that after that. And I had Iraqi friends that were working with me at the Hyatt Regency. And I had an Iraqi friend in the dorms that lived on our floor. And he said, I've got to go home or I can never go home. And I heard that when I was over here and I was living in Lahaina in the 80s from my Iraqi friends, that we can never go home again. And I never really that didn't make sense to me. In my world, you can go wherever you want. And Greg grew up in Europe a lot of his life. I was a student over there. I was an exchange student, and when I went into East Germany in Poland, and I realized that you have people with machine guns, and I was like, oh my, there's a different world.
It is, and if you talk to people that grew up in that world, they'll tell you that we are very fortunate to even be able to have this debate. The fact that you and I can sit here and have this talk
conversation
on air and throw these ideas out.
Yeah,
I feel safe, but it's in other worlds or other countries that would not work. So,
exactly. Yeah, we are just at this point that it's like, wow.
Yeah.
But and that's something that's missing. They create, people who actually grew up in Iran, and we've seen them. We don't know that we've seen them on the streets because you can AI anything now. But the people that I know that are from Iran, I have a friend here on island who is a doctor that I haven't seen for many years now. But I remember hearing about what it was like after the Shah left. And she told me about that because I said, I back in my glory days when I was coaching, I got a call from the World Olympic Committee. Do you want to go to Kuwait and just be an assistant coach? And they're going to create a water polo program. And I'm like, oh, I want to be part of something that's the Olympics, even though I'm creating swimming or water polo in a place that doesn't really have water sports. Oh, this is really cool. And then the what's his name? Hussein change that out.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But here's another aspect of getting at the truth, and I've tried to do this more, is is being around people that actually were there or came to this. And I worked with a few people that came from that area, and you do hear a different perspective.
Yes.
And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. This is what the whole purpose of this show is about. Yeah. But it adds another piece to the puzzle.
Absolutely.
Right. So you've got, back to your algorithms, you've got one side or the other.
Yeah.
And they're going to, then you got, if there are some places out there that are in the middle that give you just the facts, but then you got that other piece, which is the people that are there that can give you that true witness.
This was my life growing up in this country under this administration.
Well, and here's my, you just mentioned to your audience that I grew up in Europe. I spent 4.5 years in Europe, Scotland, England, and Belgium. My perspective on life is a lot different than a lot of people that I think didn't have that experience, because I saw what it was like to live in a foreign country. To be as an American, I was a minority, and it wasn't always, as a child, wasn't always a pleasant experience. And so I do try to put myself in someone else's shoes. I try to think it from their perspective, which I think is important as part of getting back to that truth that we're talking about, Scott.
Yes, and it's that one-on-one with somebody. Their opinion may be right or wrong, but it's something that came from the source. And this is something I've been repeating my entire life. After running for office in Oregon, I ran for the legislature. And because of my work on the salmon restoration in the Columbia River after Mount St. Helens, I had introduced a pause in the Sea Mammals Act so that we could control the sea lions and seals in the Columbia River to help the salmon come back. And PETA, people that I thought I really supported, attacked with vengeance. They even called my mother and convinced her that I was out killing baby seals with bats. And I lived a mile from my mom at that time, and she was watching my kids. And she calls me crying that, why are you doing this with bats to the baby seals? Right. So there's just a new medium now. We have social media. We don't have people doing massive calling anymore. Well, they do. Your car insurance is about to expire. You better make that call.
Yeah, but here's the example we use a lot is we remember the days of Walter Cronkite. You watched the news, you got the facts, then you took your facts, as did everyone else, and you debated those facts.
Exactly.
And you reached a conclusion.
Exactly.
And you were not necessarily, whether your conclusion may not be the same as someone else's, but that's okay.
Right.
And sometimes you both change your perspective based on that debate. That doesn't happen anymore because the debates on social media, at least in my opinion, can be very one-sided because they feed off of what you want to hear.
The stories that get more clicks are the ones that stir your emotions about soldiers taking and killing babies in the streets. That's a horrible, wicked visual if you close your eyes. But that's what fuels more people watching. And as we know in the regular old school media, the more people watch, the higher the commercials cost to be on that platform.
Right.
And that hasn't changed.
Right.
But it's sad that people want to be emotionally stirred and angered. That creates more
division.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of that. When I read this stuff on my social media feeds, it gets my emotion going, and that's bothered me lately.
Yeah.
And I don't like it, and I don't like that there are other people that may have a different opinion or may have a different perspective from what they're watching, but we can't debate it.
No.
We can't get to the truth, and that's what we're here to talk about today. That's what because Scott and I are not. We're not experts on any of this stuff.
No, but we pay attention.
Yeah. And the message we want to get out is this is worthy of discussion. This is worthy of investigation.
Very.
And to find what the truth is.
Yes.
amongst all of this social media, all of this stuff that exists today. Because, I mean, things have changed since we grew up, Scott.
Absolutely.
Remember in kindergarten, we didn't have phones. We didn't have.
No.
We had 4 channels on the television. And
you had to get up and change them. Right.
Yes, you did. You had to do that, and you had to use a key to unlock your car. So things have changed a lot, and and this is Scott and I are trying to I think navigate through this changed world.
Yes, and the thing that has really confused me, and I think we're almost down to our last 10 minutes here. But what's really confused me is, we take this scoring system, and we've been applying it unknowingly pretty much through this entire last 50 years of our life. But what questions me now is when you talk to somebody who has such an emotional connection to their view, and you ask for clarification, I mean real clarification, not something that someone else believes or not something else, and you ask for that clarification, you get an explosion.
Right.
You don't get, wow, I don't know where I got that from. Well, it's from a study. And now we know that they've been manufacturing studies now since the 50s to convince you that smoking's okay. And
that's just one example.
One example. But it keeps getting repeated.
Yeah.
So when you want to feel good, the algorithm, even though it's something that makes you angry, you keep repeating it because it reaffirms your algorithm that's in your brain.
Yeah.
And that's the one that once it goes one way, it's very hard to open it up again.
Years ago, I was someone told me once that every 500 years there's an invention or a change that just completely changes human history, or just it moves us to a new phase.
Right.
500 years ago, that was the printing press.
Right.
When the printing press was invented, people could read. Then the Renaissance happened, and all these ideas came out. Now, 500 years later, in the 1980s, the microprocessor was invented.
Exactly.
And which has led to all this other stuff that we've been talking about for the last 50 minutes.
Yes.
And so now, how do you deal with that?
They have microprocessors that pay attention to everything
we
do. And they originally just wanted to make sure that you bought their soap or their potato chips or their dip. But now they want to make sure that, well, do I support what's going on, or am I against what's going on, or do I just get so overloaded that I walk away and now I'm not part of the equation?
Right.
So when that happens, which I believe it's about 80% of America right now, that's my opinion. I believe that all we're hearing is these freak jobs on the far this side and the far that side, no matter if it's the medical profession, no matter if it's political, no matter if it's anything.
What's going to be interesting, Scott, is over the next generation, how we adjust to that.
Exactly.
And how, we've already talked a little bit about, I know we're running low on time, about how we are kind of disengaging from this stuff.
Exactly.
People don't watch the news. People don't want to, because it's just information overload. Somehow we're going to have to figure out how to deal with that, because that's not going to end. AI has completely. That's another whole. That's a whole other radio show.
Story,
but I mean, it's that can also be a source of information to feed your biases too.
Absolutely.
I use it. I mean, I'll be the first to admit, I look for, like, when I want to buy something and I see something I like, what do? I look at all the sources of information that tell me that's the thing you should buy.
That's exactly right.
And if I get enough of it, then I hit that button on Amazon, and boom, it shows up my door the next day.
Absolutely.
So I'm not perfect either.
No, none of us are, but we're trying to navigate.
Yes.
And you and I are the absolute poster adults now, for we used to be able to do this with many of our friends. There was no subject for decades that we wouldn't talk about, even though we disagreed. And now it's Greg and I, and I have one friend, Kevin, which I don't talk to very often, that he's completely opposed to everything I think, but we always have great conversations. And you and I are the outcome of, I can't take it anymore, but I really do want the truth, but I don't want to talk to you and get your opinion of somebody else's opinion of somebody else's opinion, which has been reposted. No. I want to talk to somebody that knows that person.
Yeah. So what's our message today, Scott? What did you bring me in here to talk about?
We came in here to talk about, write this down, folks, NCI, Engineered Reality Scoring System. Watch some YouTube videos on it. Try to learn how we either get sold soap, we get sold anything. Whether the government's trying to totally convince you of something, and we are not even touching COVID today.
Well, let's use our example, statins. Okay,
Statins.
That's I think that's a good neutral thing. Well, maybe not neutral, but it's you've got two sides to that story.
We didn't used to have two sides of that story. We're finally seeing that there are other sides.
Yeah, and so now here's the challenge: how do you look at both sides and come to a decision that you're comfortable with? You may decide that you want to take statins for the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
You may decide not to because of the facts that you've looked at, but you've looked at both sides and you've generated you made a decision.
And this is where it gets really muddy. There are studies that show, well, you just take this much. Just have one cigarette a day. Just take one Pill-A-Stat a day. And they muddy the waters.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we are rolling down the clock, and here we are live at Aku Radio. Jason Schwartz's the.
Welcome to MauiCoastProperty.com. This visor is our latest innovation. It gives you a whole new view of the future. Experience it now.